Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Operator Roundup. I'm Roshan
And I'm Gunjan Saha, and together we'll be breaking down the biggest headlines from the Indian startup ecosystem. Roshan, before we begin the 112th edition, I've got a tongue twister for you. A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance.
A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance. A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance. A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance. A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance. A proper startup profit plan prevents poor performance. There you go. It's easier to say it than to do it, I suppose.
That's right. Anyway, so in this week's roundup, we'll be talking about the proposed Digital India Act 2023. The center has said that it's coming up with this plan to strictly deal with the misinformation and high-risk AI to prevent harm to users. We'll also talk about the ambitious plans that Ola Electric has for its IPO, which is slated to happen sometime in 2024-2025. The Union Minister of Coal and Mines, Mr. Prahlad Joshi, also will be inaugurating India's first mining startup summit. This will be organized by the Ministry of Mines in collaboration with IIT Mumbai. Last week, we also discussed that Chirate has raised additional funds to invest back into the ecosystem. And this week, we have Matrix Partners that is raising $518 million
Wow.
for a fund that will be focused in India. And apart from that, we'll also be talking about some interesting fundraisers. So stay tuned as we break down these headlines for you. Roshan, ever since the 2,000 rupee ban was announced, did you know that the cash on delivery orders for Zomato has gone up by 72%?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. People are exchanging their 2,000 rupee notes, right? Fantastic, man. People, I'll tell you, in India is just Jugaad Max. Yeah, but some interesting things this week. A rather slim news week, but we have the inauguration of the new Parliament building tomorrow. And that's been a fantastic project, right? I mean, it started in the heights of COVID, 2020, May 2020, I think. And yeah, I mean, even despite COVID and all of the supply chain shocks and everything, we've completed it in 3 years. Phenomenal, right? Really hats off to the architects and the construction team. I mean, the project team, they've done a fantastic job. Aside from that, I mean, the usual heartbreak, right? RCB fails to qualify for yet another year, right? Despite fabulous cricket from Virat Kohli, right? But yeah, let's hope that we pick a better team next year, I suppose.
But IPL is not about winning matches, it's about winning hearts.
Yeah, we'd like to believe that.
Okay, let's talk about the upcoming Digital India Act. Right? This was proposed by the government, and the proposed bill aims to help India achieve the goal of becoming $1 trillion digital economy and become a significant player in the whole global value chain for digital products, devices, platforms, and solutions. Now, this bill's main focus will be to deal with the misinformation and, of course, the risk of AI, especially with deep fakes. And, of course, you've seen rounds of videos of our Prime Minister, doing rounds on Twitter. And the first draft of this bill is expected to be ready by the first week of June. The government is also creating necessary checks through this bill, which will address the high risk and deep fake AI. There'll be no separate legislation, but a part of the Digital India Act will address these threats. And I think with all these regulations come in place, it kind of also fosters a sense of innovation among startups and kind of gives them a guide as to, hey, these are the areas to focus on.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
No, it's we've said it before, right? See, everything right now is being governed by the IT Act, which is 20 plus years old, and it was created in a different world and a time, right? I mean, given how consumer internet has matured, given the new trends in AI and all of that, right? I mean, and the geopolitical consequence of some of these innovations and so on, we really have to have regulation that is suited to the context of our times. And that is what the Digital India Act will enable, right? I mean, it will address various things like privacy, fake news, social media, so on and so forth, right? Which are all being addressed by a 20 plus year old act right now at this point of time, and all in a very ad hoc fashion. So I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to this. Sam Altman is expected to, of OpenAI obviously, is expected to arrive in India sometime shortly. And ahead of that, I think I heard a few things that, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who's the Minister of IT, is mulling our own considerations on how to regulate AI and so on, right? Obviously, it has to be regulated given that, we have a large population. We need to take care of people, and it's not just about, hey, getting rid of jobs and whatnot, right? But it has a larger consequence as well. So let's see. I mean, this is, it's a situation of der aaye durast aaye, right? So let's hope that, we get to see some new regulation. And for entrepreneurs as as well, I mean, it's always better to know what is the black and white, right? Where do they have to operate in, rather than, always live under that sort of ambiguity, right? I mean, this is what we've seen even with fintech, for instance, right? It's always better when the policymakers come out and say what you can and cannot do. And there's just greater incentives to operate in a compliant manner in that case.
But okay, but let's look at India as a market, right? The world's most populous country, the biggest market for many of the tech giants like Twitter, Google, Facebook, you name them. So I think the sort of regulations which the government will put forth will also set a precedence as to how other countries might decide to regulate their.
Absolutely. I think if you look at India, in this sort of multipolar world that we're living in, right? I mean, there are a lot of countries outside of, let's say, the US, China, maybe to an extent, Russia, that are looking to India for leadership, right? I mean, look at the global south, for example, right? I mean, you just saw Prime Minister Modi visit a bunch of these countries, right? Fiji, Papua New Guinea.
The reception he got in Australia.
As well, right? I mean, these are folks who are looking to us as a key ally and a partner, from the smaller countries to, some of the larger ones as well. And everyone acknowledges that, the level of development we have on a public digital infrastructure is phenomenal. It's the best in the world today. And last roundup we mentioned that even Japan is sort of mulling getting into the UPI system, right? So on that front, I mean, I think India can take that leadership position and show the world how it's done, really.
Okay, it's been a while since we spoke about IPO plans in this roundup, right? But last week, Ola has announced that it's planning a stock market listing by the end of 2023. The company was last valued at $5 billion in 2022, and for this fundraise, they are working with Kotak Mahindra, ICICI Securities, Axis, Citi, and Goldman Sachs. All of them have thought to have pegged the company's IPO valuation at $9 to $11 billion. And not only that, before they list, they'll have a pre-IPO round. And few statements in the media state that Ola Electric wants to raise $1.2 billion. Now let's compare this with the valuation of Hero compared with the valuation of Bajaj.
It's pretty insane, right? I mean, see, this is what we got wrong in the 2021 IPOs, right? When all of these folks went to market with such ridiculous valuations, right? Whether it was Zomato or Paytm, and they paid the price since, right? I mean, their valuations are down 60-70% since then. $9 or $11 billion, I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, look at Hero, for example. One of the, they occupy a significant share of the market, and they're at about $7 billion valuation, right? Bajaj, which is the leader in India, is at around 16 billion, right? And TVS, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the numbers offhand, but these are the numbers after, decades of being in the market and having a significant share of the two-wheeler market, right? And here is Ola that comes in and, with about 3 years' execution, wants to command a $9 or $11 billion valuation. It's bizarre to me, but I don't know, right? I mean, so also they're going to raise a pre-IPO round of about $250-300 million to ramp up their manufacturing capacity. They're right now doing about 500,000 scooters in the year. They want to take that up to about 2 million, apparently. And that's a lot of scooters, right? And see, Ola Electric has got a lot of things right. We had the crazy case of, the scooters catching fire and all of that stuff. Since then, I mean, they've made, reasonable amends, and they've cornered something like 35% of the market share today in that segment, right? Which is, again, to put it in perspective, electric vehicle itself is about 5% of that market, two-wheeler market, right? It's not a lot in that sense. But still, I mean, they've been holding ground, right? I mean, Hero has launched Vida or something. TVS is going to, launch a few of these as well. Then obviously we have Ather and the likes.
There is competition within
No, there is
EV
definitely
market,
competition, but these guys are holding fort, right? And there is some talk that some of the FAME subsidies that the government had launched to incentivize electric vehicles will also go away in some time, will be phased out, right? So I guess Ola wants to, do the IPO before that so that they can take full advantage of that, and also consumers respect that. So let's see. I mean, in my books, I mean, it feels like it's a lot, 9 or 11 billion. I mean, you're just clocking everything to perfection, right? Perfect execution, perfect everything. And probably looking at sales numbers 2, 3, 4 years ahead, right? I don't know. Let's see if it pans out.
Okay, so let me ask you, would you apply for the IPO?
No. Hell no.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. The central government is organizing its first mining startup summit in May 29th in Mumbai. The aim of the summit is to simplify the process for the mining industry by leveraging new tech in exploration and mining and enhancing mining and mineral production. More than 120 startups and 20 major industries are expected to participate in this event. If you were to look at the mining industry, right, from what I understand, not only the core mining companies would like get value out of this, but I think this would also be a huge boost to the drone ecosystem as well in terms of aerial mapping, in terms of
Yeah. No,
surveys.
there are a lot of allied industries that could benefit from it for sure. And look, I mean, mining is like the very tip of an ecosystem, right? I mean, we talk about semiconductors and whatnot, right? I mean, we just found those, what is that,
Lithium
lithium
deposits
ores
in
in
Kashmir.
Jammu and Kashmir, right? Historically, we have not done the best of extracting these resources, refining them, whatever. We have not done much with the uranium, for example, right? And it'll definitely require greater technology, more innovation, more people participating in this, right? Because at this point, I mean, if you look at our best, whether it is metallurgical engineers, mining engineers, any kind of these core engineers, I mean, they all move to software at the end of the day, right? Software or management or business or whatever, right? There are not enough incentives for someone to execute in these core domains. And I suppose that's what the government is trying to do. I mean, they're trying to create those actual incentives for people to do great work, also attract the best and brightest minds in this domain, because it's super important for sure.
This reminds me of a tweet which Yamini had put out, right? Yamini is the co-founder and CEO of Waymo. I remember back in 2022 December, she said that India is now in its fourth wave of IT revolution, right? I think with the government taking initiatives like this, like think about it, we never had really spoken about innovation in mining sector, right? We had never had spoken about innovation in the manufacturing sector or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the government is actually taking the lead in saying that, hey, while India has grown to become the world's third largest startup ecosystem, you can leverage that into other industries as well.
For sure, for sure. I mean, you look at what's happening on manufacturing, for example, right? I mean, everyone was skeptical about PLIs. Some of those folks said that it's a newer form of import substitution, and people were even mocking some of this Make in India and stuff, right? But I mean, that has paid dividends, right? And it will continue to pay dividends, right? I mean, we definitely need all of these spheres to fire for us if we have to grow, right? I mean, India is so large that we can't just depend on one sort of industry, right? I mean, we can't just depend on IT services or exports or whatever. I mean, everything has to fire, whether it's manufacturing, some of this other stuff, right? I mean, whether it's exporting all these raw materials, processed goods, and so on and so forth. So yeah, and our export numbers have.
In other news, Matrix Partners India has extended the target size for its current fund to $525 million and has raised $518 million for its new round. It's fourth for India. And Matrix Partners, of course, has a brilliant track record. Out of India's 102 unicorn startups, 10 of them are from the Matrix Partners portfolio. This includes the likes of Razorpay, Off Business, and others. And not only Matrix Partners, Sequoia India and Southeast Asia, Lightspeed Ventures, Axel, Elevation, they have also unveiled new funds focusing on India. Right? If I remember, Sequoia had unveiled a $2.85 billion fund. So there's a lot of capital waiting to be deployed in Indian startups, and I think majority of this is happening because these funds are trying to adopt the whole China plus one strategy.
Correct.
So can you help us understand
But
that?
Matrix is obviously it's a homegrown fund. It's their fourth fund at this point. The previous fund was something like 300 plus million.
This is 75% increase in the fund.
Yeah, it is. So it is bigger than the previous fund. And I mean, we spoke about Ola. Matrix was the first institutional investor in Ola, right? So they really made bank with Ola, right? And they have some really smart people as well. Avnish Bajaj, I think. I mean, he was earlier the founder of Bazi. And you read all of those portfolio startups, right? Off Business, Razorpay. I mean, fantastic companies. We definitely need a lot more money. I mean, it's just waiting to be deployed at this point. I am on record saying that, later in the year is when the dam will break. Let's see. I mean, it has to come in at some point and at reasonable valuations, right? I mean, we'll probably never ever go back to the 2021 valuations for good reason. I mean, I hope more sustainable businesses are built, right? I mean, people always draw this sort of dichotomy between, bootstrapping and funding. I think there could actually be a very strategic use for capital if it's deployed for growth in a reasonable fashion and not for, the next round and the next round after that, right? Not to look good on paper per se. So yeah, I mean, it's been a hard lesson in terms of having profitability, focusing on sustainable growth for Indian startups over the last year or so. Interestingly, I read a report that said about a third of the Indian unicorns are profitable, and a significant number of them are on the path to profitability, right? 30% are profitable or on the path to profitability. That's what it said, right? Which is a encouraging sign for sure. I mean, there are, of course, the likes of, ShareChat and bunch of those folks who are far off from that goal. But you also have some sensible entrepreneurs who've realized that, hey, I mean, the market has turned. It's an opportunity for us to tighten things up and do better. So yeah, let's see what happens going further. And all the best to the Matrix team.
Okay, let's talk about some fundraisers from the week, right? But before that, the fourth quarter results of companies like Nykaa and InfoEdge have not impressed anyone. Nykaa saw its net profit drop by 71%, while InfoEdge reported a net loss for the first time in 6 years. So I think that really underlines what the market sentiments are right now.
Yeah, I think InfoEdge had to write off their investment, their VC arm had to write off their investment in Rahul Yadav's company. I think that was about, 30 million or something. And they also had to write off their investment in this B2B commerce business. Yeah, that's that. So they had to write off their investment, I suppose. And it's going to be a while, I suppose, right? I mean, so people are still on a wait and watch mode. And it's going to take a lot of quarters of sustained profitable growth for some of these companies to sort of command some love from investors, I should say.
Okay, now about fundraisers. Bus tracking and ticketing startup Chalo has raised $45 million from Avatar Ventures, Lightrock India, Waterbridge, and Amit Singhal, who is the head of Google Search. There's also D2C startup Hopscotch that raised $20 million from Amazon, Lion Rock, IFL Seed Venture Fund, RPG Ventures, and TechRow Ventures. And interestingly, even Eduardo Saverin, who is one of the co-founders of Facebook, has participated in this round.
Yeah. No, he's been active in this ecosystem for a while now, actually.
So for this week's Talk of the Town section, we have the CNBC interview of Elon Musk, where the interviewer asks him whether he cares that sometimes Elon's tweets hurt share prices of his listed companies, right? To which Elon replies.
There's a scene in The Princess Bride, great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Wow, so that is some savage reply, I guess. So we hope you really enjoyed the conversation we put out last week with Pawan Gupta of Better Half. And this week we'll be releasing the podcast with Sairam Krishnan, who is the head of marketing at Atomic Work and is also one of the first few hires of Freshworks. So do keep an eye out on our social media handles to know when that episode is out. And of course, please do let us know how you like the conversation. Apart from that, for more regular updates delivered straight into your WhatsApp inbox, you'll find a link in the description below. And keep sending us your love. And before Roshan says it, please do rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. That really helps more people discover our content. And anything else I'm missing out?
No, I think we're good. So thanks for all the support, folks. Keep it coming, and do share all of this great content with your family and friends.